I will start with game development, create the best game in the world and earn millions of dollars with it.
2,000 years later.
I must have made a mistake somewhere, I guess. During my 3-year journey as solo game developer, I released 3 games on Steam and made millions of mistakes during their creation. To help you avoid repeating my mistake, today I will tell you about biggest mistakes I made as solo game developer. First commercial game I worked on was Insanity's Grip. It was a psychological horror game with 1 hour of gameplay. Originally, this game was supposed to take place in a tavern, where the player is trapped by a crazy family that runs the tavern. I drew inspiration from Resident Evil Biohazard, and after a month of development I changed this idea completely and turned it into a story about mentally disturbed criminal who finds himself trapped in his own memories. Then few months later I changed direction of the game again, because since it was my first game I realized that I didn't have enough skills to do what I wanted to do. In the end I finished the game and released it on the Steam, but it wasn't the game I originally wanted to create. At some stages of development there was a risk that I would not even finish the game, because I often didn't know what to add to it or what direction it would take. When I later started working on a game Punisher, I first created something that is called Game Design Document. It is a document in which I first wrote in detail about what the game would be like, and only then I did the start of development. Thanks to this approach, development of this game was much faster, because I didn't have to figure out in the direction of the game as I went along. Creating a proper plan for what the game will look like is a very important part of the development that I initially underestimated. But since then, I have been using Game Design Document all the time, and I must recommend it to you as well. In a video description I will put a link to a YouTube video from Gamedev Beginner which talks about the Game Design Document in detail. Anyone who doesn't have much experience with game development and doesn't know what it entails want to create their own dream game. We often want to create a game with a huge world or a larger number of different mechanics, and we constantly want to add new things to the game. This was my mistake when I was working on my RPG game, which I ultimately didn't finish because of this mistake. I had written a game design document, but I didn't realize that what I wanted to create was too much for a single developer working a real job. In the end, I reached the point where adding another mechanic to the game broke another mechanic, and everything started to fall apart. It is necessary to know limits of your game before you start working on it, because investing months or years of the time in developing a project and then ending it all due to your poor decision is one of the most demotivating things game developer can experience. Game development naturally involves testing to ensure that everything works as it should and trying to find some bugs. But there is another type of testing, namely prototyping. In short, this involves creating basic mechanics of the game and creating small prototype of final game in the shortest possible time to test whether the game is fun. Prototyping is great because if we find out that something is missing from our game or that it's not fun at all, we can change certain things in the game in a time or terminate development and not waste time developing a game that no one would be interested in. For this kind of testing, it's best to use someone who isn't your family member or a friend, because stranger can give you a more objective opinion, so it's great to have a community that's willing to play your game. Speaking of that community, I created a Discord server where I post updates about the development of my games that you won't see anywhere else. So if you want to follow development of my games in more detail and contribute your ideas, don't hesitate to join my Discord. I will leave the link in the video description. Game development is not just about writing code and creating the game itself, but also about making sure other people know about your game before you release it. I made this mistake when I was working on a game Punisher. I created a game with decent gameplay, but after its release, I found out that almost no one bought it, meaning its development cost me more money than it earned. Reason for this was mainly poor marketing, which I had almost none of. Before release I only had about 500 wishlists, which predicted that maybe 50 people would buy the game, and that's exactly what happened. I'm sure that if I had posted more about my game on social media, it would have gotten more attention and maybe some big streamer would allow to play it, which would have basically advertised the game more. If you want to make games and also earn money from them, I definitely recommend doing marketing from the very beginning, for example through social networks such as Instagram or Reddit. I started making videos on YouTube to document my journey as a game developer, and more than 500 people have joined me on this adventure, for which I thank you. If you don't subscribe to my channel yet, I would be happy if you considered subscribing or watching my other videos about game development. In my life, I stick to the saying that the biggest mistake you can make is to be afraid of making a mistake. I always wanted to create my own game, but I kept putting it off. I tell myself that if I had started at least a few years earlier, I could now be creating games on completely different level than I am now. So if you also want to create your own game, I recommend that you don't put it off until the later, because you may regret it as much as I do now. If you don't know how to start developing games, I recommend watching my video where I explain my tips on how to start developing games. You can also find the link to this video in the video description. Don't be afraid to start, you have nothing to lose by trying something new, and if you don't enjoy it, at least you will find out where you stand, which is definitely better than regretting that you never even started. If you like this video, I'd be very happy if you join my Discord server and subscribe to this channel. See you next time!